Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Castle and I'm the high school math TEKS facilitator here in the Mesquite ISD. And today I want to talk to you about an activity called wall dominoes, which is a way to get your students up and moving to practice what they've learned in your classroom. This is a simple idea, but it produces great results. It's a great way to turn any boring worksheet into an active, engaging learning experience for your students. Two of the greatest benefits of using this activity is that it's engaging and active. It forces students to get up out of their chair and moving around the classroom or even the common area of your school and not having to sit in isolation while they work. It is also a self-checking activity, meaning that students will be able to check their own answers as they work through the questions that you give them. A third benefit of wall dominoes is that they are very easy resources to create. Just take any worksheet that you're already using in the classroom and you can easily make that into a wall dominoes activity that forces students to get up and moving around the room. Okay, well that's all well and good, but what exactly are wall dominoes? Well, I love when you ask questions that flow right along with what I want to talk about in my notes. And so what wall dominoes are is that they are sheets of paper that on the bottom half have a question from the worksheet that you have been using in class. You will take one question and put it at the bottom of several different pieces of paper, however many questions that you have on the worksheet. On the top of those pieces of paper, you will put an answer to a different question. So you want to make sure that as you're creating this resource that you put a question and an answer separately, meaning that if the bottom of my domino says 2 plus 2, I don't want the top of my domino to say 4. I want 4 to be on a separate domino than its question of 2 plus 2. So what wall dominoes allows us to do is it allows us to go from this boring worksheet where a student just has to sit still and work to an up and active and engaging activity where they are moving around the room at their own pace, working through guided practice or independent practice problems that you have given them. And as a best practice, this works best with about 6 to 10 questions that the students have to complete. Now, by way of example, and hopefully if you decide to implement wall dominoes in your classroom, you'll go with something a little bit higher of rigor here, but just by way of example, let's say that a student starts at this domino. And by the way, students will be able to start at any of the dominoes that they choose. If a student starts at this domino, they will answer the question at the bottom of the domino. Their answer to this particular example will be 4, and so they'll look for 4 at the top of another domino somewhere around the room. When they find that answer, that domino now becomes question 2, and they will work to answer that question, look for the answer at the top of yet another domino, and continue in this way until they get back to where they started. If they work all of the problems correctly and answer them with the correct answer, they will end up back at their first domino, which will have the answer to their very last question. One suggestion is to give your students a sheet to take with them as they work in order to show their work. If you're using this in a history or English classroom, you can have them justify their answer using this space. This gives you evidence of their thinking as they work through the questions and allows both the teacher and the student to monitor progress towards completion of the activity. Some final tips and suggestions: you can let students know that if they don't find their answer at the top of another domino, it means that they didn't answer the question correctly. And sometimes a student will get unlucky by answering a question incorrectly, but finding that answer at the top of another domino because it is the answer to another question. If this happens, then the student will figure that out once they get back to the domino that they started at and realize that they haven't completed the entire set of questions. And so they will have to backtrack and retrace their steps until they can find their mistake. And while this is an activity that we oftentimes use in our math classrooms, it can also be helpful for our friends in history and English. In history, you can use this anytime you like to do a matching activity or worksheet where you have the students match some sort of stimulus to a description of that stimulus. In an English classroom, you could have students match sentences from a selection that has a literary device that it employs, or use it as a way of matching vocabulary words with their definitions. I hope you've gotten something out of this video over wall dominoes and that this could be an activity to help your students get up and active in the classroom. If you have any questions about this activity, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is rcastle@mesquiteisd.org.